Oh, here we go.
She's live.
Hello? Oh my gosh, it's me now. Hi guys. I'm just here to save the conference. Don't mind me. Hi everybody. Nice to meet you on the internet. I'll give you a little bit of context about what I'm going to talk about and like who I am and stuff because you're probably just like, who's this chick with the cool hat? But hi, I'm Bash Bunny. I am a software developer, technical content creator, and I love Linux and command line things. And I am really liking this hat. I need to remember not to read chat while I'm talking. Otherwise, I am going to lose my train of thought. I'm basically got my first development job this year. So in February of this year, got my first ever dev job. So as of right now, kind of more specialized in the Go space and in the 2E command line space of things. And my talk today, I'm going to tell you a little bit about my learning journey. Okay, story time. We're basically learning with Neovim. I started Neovim at like a really interesting time, and I'm excited to share that with you all. So get your hot drinks, get your blankies. Okay, we'll give you a little bedtime story, except don't actually fall asleep because like beginning a conference and stuff, you know. But yeah, Linux user, by the way. That's part of why my audio doesn't work a lot of the time on stream. Also, TJ, hey, oi, stop trying to steal my thunder, huh? Get out of here, TJ. Anyway, it's fine. Let me start with my little story time. So let's talk a little bit about my learning process. Okay. So one thing that's really important for me when learning is that I know my why. I need to know why I'm learning a particular skill before I can feel that I can fully immerse myself in the topic. Once I understand the value it brings, getting in the flow becomes easy because I have like a really clear goal in mind. I think that Neovim is very conducive to that style of learning because you get to kind of tweak things, hope they work, and if they don't, you got to kind of figure out why. And it's a game of trial and error. I feel like the why for using Neovim becomes really obvious once you've watched somebody use it as their main editor. It's really snappy and fast after the initial learning curve, that is. I find that working on these customizations in your DAW files can be a great kind of like lazy dev contribution if you're feeling a bit stagnant or unmotivated. Unfortunately, it can also be overwhelming and frustrating when your config breaks and you need to get work done. I have a very fun clip of me crying over a Lua error in front of 400 people. So you can look forward to doing something like that if you're a Neovim user. I ended up actually just having a file name conflict on that one. So, you know, a classic. The nice thing too is that being in a fully customized environment makes it very welcoming. So even on days where you don't really feel like putting in the work, I often find that when I'm feeling overwhelmed with my tasks, I can kind of take a break and check out some new Neovim plugins that might improve my workflow or explore the functionality of like existing tools or Neovim itself that I might not be leveraging to the fullest. So I find that getting the ball rolling, so to speak, lets me start to get a bit of positive feedback, just like being at my machine in my dev environment. Also, I get excited to try out my new changes. So it gets really easy to work up the enthusiasm to write some code. Let me give you a bit of backstory on my coding experience when I made the switch to Neovim. So before I started using Neovim, most of the coding that I was actually doing was through school or at work. I worked in IT as a like systems analyst, which was basically a term for business analyst that also does the technical implementations of all the things. So I was essentially just like the entire IT department, from gathering requirements to deciding on our infrastructure tools to administrating those tools and tailoring them to the needs of the organization. Of course, this was like in a startup environment. So, you know, entire IT department is not that far-fetched in that scenario. I got to do some coding at work from when I was an intern to that point. But I didn't have much guidance as I was often working alone on these things. So I basically taught myself how to do the things I needed to implement with the various projects that I was working on. That experience definitely made me more resourceful and independent with new challenges. The coding that I did at work often came from me experimenting with automating our processes to minimize the cost, as our resources were quite limited. Also, doing that kind of tailoring existing products to the needs of our organization allowed me to get some experience working with APIs and even like doing SQL queries and stuff like that at work. So that was nice. But beyond that, I pretty much took any opportunity that I could to automate or improve my efficiency with systems admin tasks. I taught myself PowerShell so that I could become the resident PowerShell expert. And I got a lot more experience working with the command line, and I got to spend more time coding because of it. And that was when I was doing a lot of systems administration stuff and yeah, needed to use PowerShell for that. And people really liked handing things off to me at that point because it took me way less time to do it because I wasn't in GUIs or anything anymore. Everything was all just kind of scripted out and I could just do it real quick. Um, so at school, I did the usual projects and labs that get graded and teach you the basics of coding. The tools that I was using was mostly JetBrains IDEs like PyCharm and IntelliJ, but some classes required us to use Eclipse, and my C++ class actually made us use Visual Studio on Windows. Um, but I was usually the rebel of my classes who used Linux instead of Windows or Mac OS. It was kind of like one of the requirements that we had a Windows machine, and I felt pretty bad showing up with my Linux boot. Okay, felt pretty cool about that. Eventually, because I was working with multiple different languages on a regular basis, I switched to VS Code. So what I liked, I know I should have blurred that out. I'm sorry. Okay, you gens, don't at me. All right. What I did like about VS Code was that I could add plugins that made my developer environment do more for me than just edit code. I used it to keep track of my tasks, to read markdown files, and it just felt easier to organize my projects. And it didn't require as much CPU or RAM as like full blown IDEs, which was really nice because it's super embarrassing when you're the kid in class whose laptop fans just like boom through the classroom when you boot up your IDE. um, and then when I started on Twitch, so I stream on Twitch, by the way. When I started on Twitch and decided to use the platform as dedicated time blocks for hacking on side projects, I was a VS Code user. It was in my first week of streaming that I got rated by other programming developers whose chats came in and said, "Hey, have you tried Neovim? We want to see Vim tutor," and all that. So you can probably guess where those degens came from. But I was intrigued and decided to give it a go. It was easy to get it set up on my desktop because I was already running Linux on that box. So I did that for a while, got familiar with it, and then I started writing my markdown notes with Neovim. And a week or two later, I started working on my Java homework in Neovim. It was the worst experience of my life. I didn't know how dot files worked. My terminal color scheme was purple and yellow because I literally did not know how to rice anything. I had no code completion, no LSP, literally nothing else. It was just a bare bones text editor whose motions I was like slowly picking up, but I persisted anyway. Okay. I'm not one to back down from a challenge. All right. I used Neovim as much as I could, but often when a looming deadline was approaching, I had to kind of switch back and forth um, between Neovim and my IDE to kind of clean up the unformatted code. Because again, no code formatting. So I had to like go into my IDE and like save the file, and then it would format my code for me. It was, oh yeah. If you know, you know, you know. It was only when my friend Faison recommended that I try Neovim COC. I'm not gonna say that word on the internet. Okay, I know what you guys are like. That I was able to adopt Neovim fully because it was so painful just using a basic text editor for coding. Honestly, looking back on it, I didn't even have COC set up properly. I think I got errors from it, maybe formatting, which were the biggest problems for me. So it kind of solved it anyway. But I completely forgot about linters and autocomplete. So I literally didn't even have that working until I did a collab with TJ in January of 2022, where we set up the native LSP for Neovim. Like I literally just forgot those things existed. So, yeah. Good job past me, trooper. I and so I started using Neovim when I was at the stage where I had just started working on my first ever side project. I was working on a React project that was slowly driving me crazy. It's a whole other story, but the long and the short of it is that I got sick of learning about how to use different libraries instead of being able to apply what I'd been learning in school. To be specific, I was building a habit tracker in JavaScript with React and Electron. I had never really done much web development. And I was finding that a lot of there was like a lot of conflicting information on how to do things in JavaScript. This was the beginning of me not liking JavaScript. I mean, why on earth are there 5 ways to write a loop in that language? Okay. Huh? Anyway, while my coding excitement about my new project was fizzling out, I learned about how dot files worked. I had Dracula theme working on my machine, and I also started trying to learn Haskell. Why not? I like pain apparently, so that's great. So I was learning Haskell for a little bit after giving up my my JavaScript project. But it was just too many things at once. And shortly after I had mentioned to Twitch chat that I liked C and Python, my moderator, Judo Panda Bunny, suggested that I try Go, and it was a done deal after that. I love Go. I've been working with Go for since then. And anyway, love it. Very simple. Highly recommend. Um, so let's talk a little bit more about finding project ideas, though. That stage is a tough time. If you're in that stage, I empathize. Okay. It took me a long time to even get there because I felt so blocked in trying to think of like new project ideas to apply what I had been learning in school. And it just felt like I was always kind of drawing up blank. I feel that Neovim actually helped me be more creative with project ideas for a few reasons. The first being that the configuration itself felt like a side project. I had to learn a lot. I made more of an effort to network with other developers who also use Neovim so that I could see how they used it and be able to ask questions. I got more comfortable reading documentation at this stage. There wasn't a ton of video content at the time around Neovim, and it got me learning about man pages, leveraging the help menu, and starting to look for documentation beyond what was on the web. Which brings me to my next point, which is that Neovim made me a more devoted kind of command line user. Once I moved my development environment to the terminal, I started looking at what else I could bring to the terminal so I could have everything in one place. Because I got more comfortable working with dot files, I also got my ZSH set up and tweaked my ZSHRC to have aliases for most of the things I wanted to access. I have shortcuts for folders I need to access a lot, different commands that I need. And since I use Kitty, I have some aliases there for kittens that help with SSH and showing images and things like that. I also started looking at more open source command line applications to test out. So mostly productivity apps at first. And then I started finding out about cool Go projects from that community, which included a lot of CLIs. This gave me plenty more ideas for creating CLI and TUI applications so I could replicate my favorite services in the terminal. And at this point, I already had a constant flow of project ideas, both grabbed from Neovim and just being more immersed in the open source community. And I could stop holding myself back and actually just get building. So from there, I started working on my first iteration of my PJs tool, which is a tool that is basically a project journal for keeping track of the status of different projects. It would essentially be a one-stop shop for meeting notes, design requirements, all that in a single notebook that was just organized by project name. This project went through so many changes and iterations and is what actually introduced me to the Charm Stack after CM Griffing had mentioned it previously. It went from me trying to manage subcommands and flags to a beautiful TUI and eventually to me working for them. As I'm sure everyone here knows, Neovim is open source. Neovim is what introduced me to the open source space in a sense. It encouraged me to start being more active in the space as I was using open source plugins. This is how I started feeling consistently inspired by other developers. I am curious by nature, if that isn't already obvious by the fact that I dove in headfirst to Neovim and Haskell for no reason except for Twitch chat saying, hey, you should try this. I don't know why I'm like this, honestly. I'd find a new plugin that I needed for my setup, and I would, go and check out how it worked and check out the issues, check out the PRs, and try and learn something from someone who had more experience than I did. I'd also often check out what else they were hacking on, which is always fun, especially when it's someone who shares similar interests in the tech space. So you kind of find all their projects really interesting. Anyway, so that's another rabbit hole that it threw me down. And now I'm at the stage where I have no shortage of projects to create on my own time. And there are plenty of open source tools that I think are super cool and want to contribute to. I really have more work. I really have like more to work on than I have time for, which is a great position to be in. The nice thing too about using Neovim is that while I feel comfortable with my current Neovim setup, there are still things that I can do to improve it and make myself more efficient. Okay, don't freak out, but my experience with Vim Motions is still pretty minimal. I'm learning new things every day with my editor, and I love that. I think that if you're someone who gets bored easily and is constantly looking for ways to improve and optimize their workflows, I think Neovim would be worth a try. I've always loved coding, except in the moments where it's made me cry. Okay. But it has honestly been increased tenfold since having a developer environment that I love and look forward to using every day. All right. Just remember, it could be worse. Your setup could look like mine did when I first started using Neovim. Purple background, purple text. Switch to the upgrade from that was literally yellow text, purple background. What? All right. I'll look at chat a little bit. Hi, guys. Do you have any questions for me? Purple on purple. It was actually, it's a meme. Like, it's really bad, but it's fine. It's fine. It is live. Yeah. But yeah, that's my story. That was my little story time. Update your Neovimconf. Okay, listen, I do need to push my changes for my dot files, okay? You can check out my Mac branch. That's actually up to date, but it's because my stream setup gets all like garbled and scuffed, okay? It's part of the aesthetic. No, it's not recording. I was just telling you guys my story. I know, it's just what can I say? Just did such a good job, you thought it was a YouTube video. Engaging. Would you rather 1v1 Primogen or Tej in Fall Guys? Honestly, Tej. Tej is pretty garbage at video games.
What
Yep.
the heck?
Agreed.
What the heck? I mean, you're not wrong, but what the heck?
That was perfect. That was perfect timing. I agree. We should get a 1v1 going, and it should be fantastic.
Our internet dies
In Fall
one
Guys.
time.
One time, just a single internet death, and that's it. You're terrible at video games.
I mean, she's still not wrong. I'm still not, but like, what?
Yeah. All right. So we're gonna help you kind of field a couple questions. Can we do that? Just because you can just kind of focus on the questions. We'll focus on which ones might be nice, and we can go back. So we actually have the question posted on stream right now, which is: would you say that personal programming, learning, and projects are hard to do while in school?
Yes, so hard, especially because like I was in school and working. So it was especially hard to kind of put time aside into your own personal projects. That's actually why I started streaming on Twitch, because I knew that when I was streaming, I couldn't show any work stuff. I couldn't show any school stuff. So it had to be personal projects. So that's pretty much why I started streaming, is just that it was basically like time allocated every week on a consistent schedule that I would have to work on my side projects. So no matter how busy my schedule got.
Smart. I think scheduling, people often ask me and you, I think, about like how do we also make time for stream and everything. I think an important aspect is to schedule it in and be very consistent about doing that. I think that's how you make continued progress, like what we've seen on your stream, Bash, which is really fun.
Yeah.
Bash, I've got a question for you. Should we do a Bash to Basics about Rust, even after you made fun of me?
Yes,
okay,
absolutely.
Okay, sweet. Cool. All right. Well, we'll cue that up, chat, since
Rust,
a lot of people were asking.
All right, we got one more. I think this is a good question right here. Question: what do you do when you get frustrated while learning things about Neovim? How do you not lose interest in it?
Wait, TJ, can you show my clip?
Yeah, I'll show. I think I can. Hopefully, as long as our internet keeps working. Let's try.
If
Literally
I
hate everything.
This is me crying over the Lua error that I mentioned
It
earlier.
only took me an hour and a half. So, you know. Good thing I didn't waste any time on it. You
There's
guys,
a
I'm
name
literally about to
conflict.
cry right now. Oh my god.
TJ came in and literally fixed it in like 2 minutes. And I had spent an hour and a half troubleshooting that problem. So I guess my answer to that question is just like, you know, maybe you gotta step away, go for a walk, cry a little, take a nap, like whatever you gotta do, you know, it can get
Call TJ.
frustrating. But like ultimately just yeah, ask some friends, ask people in the community want to help you, you know? Like you just ask for help. It's okay. People aren't gonna like, you know, destroy you. And then keep at it, you know? That's what I think.
Yeah. There is definitely something really awesome about it where you start with nothing. Everything feels confusing. And then after you've gone through it a couple times, like that feeling to be like, oh, I want to
Yeah.
create something. And it's just like 5 times easier to create it just because you're used to. There's something very special about that.
Yeah. Agree.
Yeah, I think another thing too would be just like don't take yourself too seriously. Right? Like in the
Mhm.
clip you showed, part of it is you're able to like laugh. And maybe we're freezing again.
The
I don't know.
quality's down a little, but
Okay.
it's still live and consistent.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just so you know, it's not necessarily the internet. The internet seems to be uploading quite speedily. We're not sure where the problem is, but we'll try to figure it out. We'll try to figure it out.
All right, any last things that you want to plug, Bash, before we move on to the next item?
Yeah, where do we even find you at?
Yeah, so you can find me. My handle on every social media platform is Bash Bunny, except Twitter, Pseudo Bunny, because I need the Twitter nerds to know that I'm the boss. I got root privs, okay? And yeah, the best place right now to find me is probably on YouTube. I'm posting a lot more on YouTube, and Twitch because I will be living in on Twitch one of these days. Okay, I promise. I haven't abandoned ship. So yeah, Twitch and YouTube. Username is Bash Bunny, and then Pseudo Bunny on Twitter.
Awesome. Thanks, Bash. We appreciate your talk. We can hear you typing, Prime, because it's loud and we have no gate. Okay.
Yes. Sorry, I was
actually
fielding
ASMR.
questions. Yeah.
Maybe that'd be fine because then it wouldn't matter that we have no pixels on the screen. You could just hear the audio.
Yep, the audio is nice and gentle. There you go. I think we
Very.
linked out everywhere. Bash Bunny on YouTube, Pseudo Bunny Twitter, Bash Bunny on Twitch. We just did a shout out. I'll do another one.
Thank you. Thank you. Very much appreciated. I hope that talk helped somebody who's maybe struggling through some of that stuff. There's a light at the end of the tunnel, I promise.